And what is going on, everybody? So welcome to another brand new episode of the Between the Lines podcast. Joining me is a different interesting panel. My good buddy Tyler Coleman from the Philly joining me along the way. And you've seen this guy before. Good old Mets Talk with Hey, what is going on? What is going on, guys?
Nothing much, just chilling, hanging out, huge.
So kind of want to get this underway. Some news that huge shout out to Key who brought me to the topics that the Yankees are adding Jose Trevino to their roster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no. Hey, what do you think about that? Oh, you're muted.
Whoops, sorry about that. I think it's a fair addition. There's really nothing crazy about it. In my opinion, I think he is definitely one of the top defensive catchers in the game, obviously posting a 98th percentile in framing metrics, according to Baseball Savant. Obviously, his offensive approach is really not what you look for. It's obviously the defense, the framing behind home plate. And last year, the Yankees, with Gary Sanchez, it wasn't working out with them. Gary Sanchez wasn't blocking a ball for his life. He was horrible at framing. He wasn't simply enough even doing an adequate job behind the plate. So I really think it's a backup catcher move, I guess. There's really nothing crazy to say about it. He didn't give up a whole lot. I think he gave up like 2 pitching prospects, weren't even in the top like 200. So really low risk move. Not much to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. It's like just seeing what these teams are capable of. The next kind of thing, it's just like, yeah, like you said, the fact that some teams are giving up. And speaking of another Tyler coming in, good old green collar Tyler. What is good, man?
How we doing, everybody? Sorry for being late. Got caught up in something.
Nah, you're fine. You're fine. Well, welcome to the Between the Lines podcast, where we talk all things MLB and all things pretty much baseball at this with this show. So we just kind of talked about Jose Trevino getting added to the New York Yankees, and obviously from what Hayden kind of explained, how they just gave up like not even the top, like you said, not in the top 200s. It's like it's just crazy seeing how these teams are getting away with some, get at least something decent in return for them.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how many of these trades are happening through nowadays in the MLB, especially with Jose Trevino being one of the newest ones to add on to that list. It's just, I'm guessing it has something to do with the players as well, probably demanding their trades and wanting to go to specific places in particular. So, unfortunately, if it's kind of like in the NBA, where if a player wants to go somewhere, then they'll send him there and they'll get what they can get back for him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just like it happens in all sports, and it's just like, and now kind of going into this one, Albert Pujols signs a 1-year deal with St. Louis. Man, are we really going to be turning back the clocks just because of that?
And speaking of turning back the clocks, Rob, his first game back, I swore he was 2011 Pujols.
It's just like, I'm thinking, it kind of got you thinking. It's like after he left. Went to like the Dodgers to the Angels for a little bit, and then comes right back. It's like, I get it. I understand this. He does say this is his last year in the major leagues, and hey, look, you got to give the man some credit though. I mean, for brought St. Louis to 3 championships. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yo, what is up, Key? Appreciate it with the topics. Well, yeah, I want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on that. Him going right back to St. Louis where it all started.
I guess I'll start off here. It's something that I think a lot of players wish they could do. Especially when it's a team you spend so much time with. You always dream of being able to go back there, end your career there, especially when you have so many great moments for a said team. And for Albert Pujols, I think he's hoping for this to be his fairy tale ending. Maybe he gets a chip. I'm not exactly sure if he'll be able to do it or not. But even then, the guy's had a heck of a career, Hall of Fame career, in my opinion. Now I think it's at this point, we'll see if he's able to break that home run record or not.
Hayden?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair move. I mean, it's nothing crazy. Like everyone's kind of saying, finish where you started. Obviously, with the DH being added to the NL, I think that kind of helps out his case. Simply enough, yes, you do have Paul Goldschmidt at first base. I understand that. So maybe if you were to do something like you could kind of platoon the two, Goldschmidt plays first, and then you have Pujols DH, which is what the Dodgers did for most of last season, especially coming in the playoffs. He wasn't super shabby. So whether you do something like that, I think could work, or you could put him at first or put him in that lineup when there's a lefty up there. So something like that could work. Yeah, like I said, he's not going to be like all-star caliber like he was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. But, finish where you started, try and get to that 700 record. I think he's like 21 or 22 or something like that away. I don't think he'll hit 21 home runs. I think a lot of his power has decreased. I mean, posting an ISO, of 150, his power's kind of gone. But overall, solid move.
Yeah, I have to agree with that one because he's not the same guy he was 10 years ago. Like he just said, his age did catch up to him. His power did diminish. And I do think he will, and I do agree with this, he will be a solid DH guy to end his career this year. And honestly, he had a hell of a career anyway, so...
I mean that is true. I mean the fact that and you can't take it away from him too yet. And I think with everybody on the panel say, Pujols, whether a lot of people like him or hate him, I don't care where you stand in between. We can all agree on one thing: he is definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer in the kind of career he has carved out the last 19? How long?
2021, yeah. 22.
Oh my goodness, how time flies.
I was born in 2002, and I think that was his rookie season. So,
God, makes most of us on this panel feel old.
Dude, I was 4.
And I think I was 2 then when he was in the league, when he first came to the league. Man,
God, I was 5. Yeah, so it's just crazy to see how much time has flown, especially in the way that it pulls. Yeah, is he going to have 700? Probably not. Look, he's still going to finish close to 700. So, I mean, that's something you can't take away from. It just shows that at times that, even though Pujols is not the same player when he once was 5-10 years ago, even if you looked at it, even at this part of his career, he has produced decently, especially for a DH, because it's like, and like Hayden said, the power, it's not there anymore from what we used to remember. Like, guy just was a home run hit machine. Would average between 30 to 40 a year. And there was a couple times where I think he had a couple 50-ones too back then. But it's just, and I think I kind of like the idea is just go back to where you finish where you started. I mean, the only one you can not to make an exception for is Molina, because he's been there for the majority of his career. And so, I mean, why not have, Molina and Pujols, end the season on a high note? And the thing about with Molina is just like he's not great offensively, but he's only been way known as a defensive catcher. It's just, obviously the hitters have come around the last couple of years. It's like, I don't know. Like, it's weird to see some of these players that we used to see, back in the mid 2000s, almost to the 2010s, just gone.
Yeah, I know for me personally, like, I'm still reeling that we don't have Big Papi in the league anymore, and it's been a couple of years since he's retired now, and it's still like just so weird for me to even say it out loud.
Yeah,
there's no more Big Papi anymore.
Yeah, and I live up in the New England area, so I'm watching more Red Sox games, and it's weird seeing a lineup without Big Papi. It's so weird.
It is the weirdest thing you can really think about. And what was the last time? What it would have been? What's it? 2016 the last time Big Papi was in the league? 2017.
I want to say it was 2017, 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 2017, 2018 because they had won a championship for him.
Yeah, 2018.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
It's just crazy. Like, never seen, Big Papi in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you could probably, guess you could definitely make the argument for Molina getting into the Hall of Fame because it's like,
he retired 2016.
I'm talking 2016.
Oh, was it 2016? Okay.
Yep, his last game was October 2nd, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just crazy if you look at the career that Big Papi has had. Started without the Minnesota Twins in the late 90s. And a lot of people would not realize it's like, a lot of people would associate David Ortiz with the Red Sox, but if you go back between 97 to 2002, with the Minnesota Twins, it's like, really? Like, see, that's the thing that kind of blew my mind about that. It's like, okay, well, that's that. What that?
Rob, when he was with the Twins, he was on the team that killed Moneyball.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Yep. He was.
Yep.
He was on the team that killed Moneyball.
Yeah, I remember that team was super stacked. I think that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it's just, it seemed like these guys are no longer in the league. I mean, for us, it's like Utley, Howard, to name a few. I mean,
Howard, Rollins, Utley. Actually, is Utley still in the league? I thought I saw
he retired a while ago.
Yeah, he recently retired.
I have a rule named after him.
Yeah.
Got the rule.
Yeah, and that's not just that too. It's like you're seeing like some of these former players coming back and hold like their front like different assistant positions. I mean, we saw with J-Roll now coming back into the organization as I think was like a special advisor to the baseball of operation to Dave Dombrowski. So I mean, it's just at least since they're retiring, they'll always find a way to stay in the league one way or the other. Going to the next thing, we got Craig Kimbrough going to the Dodgers in exchange for AJ Pollock, who's getting sent to the White Sox.
That's a very interesting trade. Honestly, I'm a little torn on it because I really did like Craig Kimbrough while he was. I'm very surprised to see that they're moving on from him. I definitely wish him the luck, but AJ Pollock, he's not to scoff at either. Honestly, I do feel like both sides got a little bit of what they wanted in the end. Yeah,
it's just like take it from us, like as Phillies fans, like our fans, we always imitated him in most games.
Oh yeah, I remember that every time.
Like he's like the most.
I told people that were watching it with me, I'm like, look at the fans right now. When Kimbrough's up there, they're mimicking his little stance and
yeah.
Craig Kimbrough. I'll say this too. Craig Kimbrough had a pretty good career, though. I'll give him a lot of that. I'll give him tremendous props. Obviously coming out from the Braves organization. It's just crazy to see. A lot of teams were moving on from him. Obviously, the White Sox did, the Braves did when they traded him. I think with the Padres, I think we spent some time with the Padres, if I'm not mistaken. Can't think of it off the top of my head. It's really going to be annoying, but it's just, and then because I know there's some other topics that I have, that Keith never sent me. Is that other than that, speaking since we already talked about the Dodgers, do the Dodgers have the best lineup as a whole going into 2022?
Best lineup as a whole,
like obviously we start in 1 through 9, especially now with the universal DH in place.
I'd probably say so.
And I'll also kind of ties into it. Dave Roberts kind of, I guess you could probably say they kind of say like a jinx, saying they're going to win it all. Would that come back to bite them?
Look, I don't know.
I would say as of right now, this is the best team in baseball. I was looking at their roster a couple days ago, and I'm trying to think, who's the worst player on this Dodgers lineup 1 through 9? And it had to have been and this was a couple days ago, so it had to have been Pollock or Chris Taylor. And those two are arguably all-stars on maybe an average 500 team. So, simply enough, looking at a 1 through 9 of Friedman, Muncy, Turner, Taylor, Bellinger. He's coming off of a down year, but still, we'll see. Betts. That's just it's insane. Obviously, that starting rotation is definitely there. Having a rotation with the 4 and 5 spot's going to be a little concerning. But I think honestly, with them adding Kimbrough is something interesting. Obviously, that 4th and 5th spot's going to be a little worrisome. I'm assuming they're going to put like a guy like Tony Gonsolin probably in that 4th or 5th spot, and he's usually their bullpen guy, so it's good they got Kimbrough, who could go out there. One, who's their closer? Because they lost
Jansen.
They lost Kenley Jansen, so they need a closer, so he is that closer. And I don't really think he was the best fit in Chicago because you had Liam Hendricks as the closer.
Yeah,
absolutely. What we saw was he would get rocked in the 8th inning, and I don't know what it is. It's the same thing. Like, I'm a Mets fan, and Edwin Diaz pulls that same I need to close out the game nonsense. I don't know why you can't just pitch in the 8th. I don't know why he has to close out the 9th. Some guys are like that, and Kimbrough was like that last year.
One of those guys. And take it from us too, Aiden. We dealt with fucking Neris as a closer at one point.
Oh, God, don't remind me.
But the feeling
don't
is mutual,
remind me. The amount of blown saves.
But
oh my gosh,
it's just like,
I'm
yeah,
glad
that's
that dude's going. I'm just telling you, I'm glad that dude's going.
But yeah, I mean, that is a very good point, though. It's just like you're seeing these all-star kind of caliber closers just getting rocked. And the thing is, too, like, you guys have 2 potential closers, and that one of them in that bullpen is Brewster Gratterall. I would not be surprised if they would use him as a closer because he's got the stuff to use to be a closer. But we're going to have to wait and see how this team is going to go. But I think it's like, I'm kind of thinking as soon as he made that statement, say, okay, so if you do finally fall short, do you still blame Dave Roberts for making that jinxing statement? I think that should at least come back to bite on Dave Roberts for kind of, jumping the gun a little bit, and so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think to a certain point I could agree to that, but another thing you also got to keep in mind is player performances as well. If your players just aren't performing at the level that they should be at, then there's not too much more you can be doing about that. But when you're making mistakes, like not doing your rotations correctly, leaving starters in too long, or bringing in the wrong man for the certain situation you're in, that's all stuff that can lead back to him. But when you have players last year like Bellinger, as stated earlier, had an off year, it's not something you can really put on him when your star players aren't performing where they need to be.
Yeah, it's just like, and like Hayden said, I mean, the only 2 guys you could probably think of that's kind of bad on that Dodgers team is, Chris Taylor. I mean, you could definitely make some of an argument for Bellinger, but I do think Bellinger's going to find a way to bounce back. But I do think Bellinger is probably going to be somewhat of an easy out in that Dodger lineup because it's like Muncy is tough to get out. I mean, Freddie Freeman, us Phillies, and I think all of us here on the panel can understand like he was kind of a thorn in our sides.
Oh yeah.
For the last decade. So I mean, now he's going to just terrorize the NL West. It's just crazy now looking at it. It's just like just seeing Freddie leaving Atlanta, going to LA, which I think most of us knew that was going to happen one way or the other because he is from Southern California, which kind of didn't make sense. It's just this year's going to be very interesting, especially with some of these additions to these teams. It kind of goes to, and that too is just like, and we'll talk about the Oakland A's because I saw a couple moves that the Oakland A's made. Let's talk right about that. Sean Manaea going to the Padres. I want to get you. I saw it. It's just, I feel bad for A's fans. I really do.
Listen, if you look at his ERA last year, I don't know. And his ERA in spring training before he got friggin' traded, I don't know about that, man.
I mean, yeah, it's just the fact that Oakland, the A's are cleaning house. It's like, I mean, who's still left? Was it Frankie Montan still left on that in that organization?
I think so.
Pretty much. Sean Murphy behind the plate, and I mean, you still have Ramon Laureano, who's serving suspension for the steroid, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I just think it's really an embarrassment that the A's are doing like this move. I think the owner's name is like Fish or something. My thing is like, if you don't want to spend and if you don't want to compete, sell the team. You don't want to spend money, sell the team. MLB implemented this extra playoff, the 6th playoff team. Now 12, but 6 in each league, to try and prevent teams from doing this nonsense. The A's and the Reds were over 500 last year. They were literally in it till the end of the week. I mean, the Cincinnati Reds, they were literally the next team into the playoffs. They would have made it this year if they had that expanded playoff format. The A's, similar thing. They were 2 or 3 teams out, but still, they were there to compete. They needed maybe 1 or 2 more guys on that team that could fit into the category of their struggles to be a good team. So it's just embarrassing that teams do this. I mean, honestly, at this rate, I don't know. I mean, I understand they have that Moneyball mentality. They'll have a good farm system. I mean, they'll develop a lot of prospects, but it's like, I feel for the A's fans. I mean, like, it must really be unfortunate.
And you can definitely make the argument same thing with the Reds fans, because it's like, after we don't know that Suarez was not probably the best third baseman, but I think he's going to find a way to bounce back, especially with Seattle. Jesse Winker, when he got traded to the Seattle, it was like I was just shaking my head. Is the Reds really being serious? And I think it's too, like, they're not supposed. And I think this new CBA is supposed to prevent tanking in that kind of certain sense, like kind of what Hayden's talking about. But you're seeing the Reds and the Oakland A's do it and try to get
I feel like with that new CBA, they did say something about a lottery.
Yes.
And this is the reason why teams are doing this. Teams are tanking because of this lottery thing. They're wanting to get that high pick. They're wanting to, get that player that's up there. And to me, it's ruining baseball. You're losing on purpose to get a high pick.
I think tanking in general should be frowned upon. It should be frowned upon in all sports.
Seriously, I hate it when the Sixers did it in basketball. I completely hate that not the Phillies, but these baseball teams are doing it.
It's usually the smaller market teams. I mean,
no.
I'm just
going to chime in real quick here. That honestly, this shouldn't really come as a surprise, because this is something that the A's have done for years. They have a very small window of opportunity to try and make some noise in the playoffs, and how long they keep that open for is usually not very long. Okay. And if they feel like they're not going to be able to go far enough, or they feel like the core is starting to age and they're going to lose value in a couple of years, they come off of them. And they start training away and start getting ready for a couple more years in the future and get some young guys put into the farm system, as stated earlier, and try again in a couple of years. So honestly, this shouldn't really come as a surprise that they're making all these moves. However, I also understand where Tyler's coming from. As a fan, especially as a Oakland A's fan, you shouldn't be getting annoyed at this, because it's happening every single time the team's starting to get into a good place, because management is way too antsy with holding on to these prospects and just wants to keep getting the new ones in, instead of trying to finally say, you know what, we're going to go for it this year. We have these pieces in place. Maybe we just need to get a couple more in free agency, and you know what, we'll finally start getting to where we want to be. But instead, they keep getting antsy. They want to just emergency reset button as soon as they can.
Yeah, I mean, you can also make the same thing for about the Miami Marlins the last handful of years, but it's just like with the Marlins, yeah, I mean, I think there's enough. Take like the Marlins, for example. Like I think everybody in the Major League Baseball has ridiculed them. Like they're not going to go places. But if you looked at the certain moves that they made over the handful of years, it's just I think Marlins fans, I can say this too. Like I think Marlins fans are, more one of the patient ones, because I think they, even though their last championship was in 2003.
Yeah, some of the early 2000s.
Oh, Jesus
2003 they won, yeah.
Holy shit. That's still crazy to think about for a team like and you looked at some of the certain different players that have come through the Marlins. I mean, we see, Mike Stanton or Giancarlo Stanton, which I was like, this can't be the right Stanton that and playing with the Marlins, but apparently that was the case. But we're seeing what Stanton has become over the years. I think he's still a decent talent, just has a hard time staying healthy on the field. I mean, it's just now you're seeing like this bright future for what Miami has brought. Unfortunately for us, we had to give up 6. Obviously, when trading away, I mean, pretty much definitely making a mistake of trading away Christian Yelich, Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, Stanton, I felt like was going to be a tough task for them, just because of that contract. But seeing, with Marcell Ozuna has been playing better, minus the off the field issues. Christian Yelich, I know he had a down year, but he has been. I feel like he's gotten a lot better since leaving Miami. It's just like you're seeing these players who leave or at least some of these places are getting better, and the way that I see it.
Yeah.
No, perfect example of that being, that trade that happens between Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay for Glasnow and Meadows. Like, since they've left Pittsburgh, they've been thriving.
Yeah.
Although I do feel a little bad for, I believe it was Glasnow.
Yeah, Glasnow with Tommy John.
Too much. And hopefully we'll be seeing him again next year. But even then, Meadows has been thriving in Tampa Bay.
It just seems like Tampa Bay, even though as money restricted as Tampa Bay is, it's just weird to see. It's just I'm not saying it's weird, but it's just crazy to see how crazy competitive that team is being. Not somehow being super analytical and the team that doesn't spend really that much amount of money, but still find a way to make it work. I mean, we've seen with Arozarena. Unfortunately, the Cardinals gave up on him too soon, and we saw what he did in the postseason. Made some history. I mean, Wander Franco. I mean, their top shortstop prospect. I obviously getting rid of Willie Adames in order to bring him up. Who knows whoever the Tampa Bays are going to bring up? I think Fidel Brujan. I think it's another guy. I think is on his way to Tampa Bay from what I saw according to the prospects. Now the next thing, especially with spring training still going on, what teams are having a good spring training so far from what we saw? It's just for me. It's just like spring training is just one of those things that I kind of really don't pay attention.
I really have no choice but to not pay attention. So
yeah,
I've been really watching games, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, spring training is kind of like really a hit or miss. I mean, it's like quarter of your team is major leaguers, and then you have the rest of prospects. It's pretty much half prospects, half major leaguers. It's really more so of a show for prospects. So you can, kind of see who's out there and, see what guys are at their pace of their career. And even if there's, it's just, get all those, defensive hiccups and, offensive struggles out of the way. Like for the Tigers, Spencer Torkelson and Javier Baez were having some defensive issues with shifting and defensive positioning. It's like those situations is where you get it out of the way and plan. Or like Francisco Lindor, for example, he's been pretty hot for spring training so far. Do I, try and pull the ball, whatever. So like I said, I don't really put too much thought onto spring training because let's be real. I mean, you look at half the spring training record. I don't think the Yankees are going to finish under 500. I don't think the Royals are going to be, the best team in baseball.
No,
just not.
Although I do want to bring this up, though, like there's been a couple of guys, like especially with some of these young guys, being able to get that chance in spring training, they've been making the most of it. Want to go back to Oakland real quick, talk about Kevin Smith. He's having himself a pretty good spring training, averaging 324 at the bat, at the dish, has 3 home runs already, and has a 990 OPS. And White Sox Tim Anderson, another young player, he's got a 400 average right now, and I believe it was 30 plate appearances. It's great that some of these young guys, and let's not also forget Mickey Moniak from the Phillies. I believe he's got himself 4 home runs now, or is it 5?
I think 4 or 5.
I think he got another one today. That's why I can't remember if it was 4 or 5. But like a lot of these young guys are using this as an opportunity to try and show off what it is they can do, and hoping that it will impress the front office enough that they can be called up at least at some point during the season, give them that chance to shine. So I'm very happy for them to have this opportunity.
And there's another guy I think, Tyler, you can make an argument for is Bryson Stott, and look how he's the spring training that he's having. And
I've really been vouching for that guy to.
And we're seeing some of these veterans are having very high praise for a youngster as Bryson Stott. We saw from what I've heard from Nick Castellanos. So he has his poise is just pretty much cool as a cucumber. Like he doesn't really he doesn't let things rattle him. It's just like, it kind of shows like some of these prospects are sometimes wise beyond their years. It's just crazy to see with these kind of new generation coming up. Mickey Moniak, I know a lot of people have some mixed feelings with him because he's obviously the number 1 overall pick. It's just like he's pretty much been labeled as a draftless at this point of his career. Obviously, because for us, like since we did kind of talk about Moniak, just like at this point, we could use a different center, some more outfield help as we can get. Because obviously we did pick up Schwarber and Castellanos, but we can definitely switch rotate them in and out as a DH. We're pretty much I think we're going to definitely mix and match the DH depending on the matchups, though. Mickey Moniak, I think he, as much as I really hate to say it, I do think he's got some potential. But it's just like, how much longer do we have to wait for Moniak to get everything clicking?
Yeah, you are definitely right there. Like especially as a first overall pick, there's always that added pressure because if you don't become like an all-star at the bare minimum, you're labeled a bust. And if there's one thing that especially us Philadelphia fans don't like, it's waiting. It's our number one bane, and we hate it in every single sport. But I do feel like with, given enough chances and given enough time to properly develop, I do think Mickey Moniak could be a good center fielder for us. I don't know if he'll reach all-star level, but
I think he'll be like above average.
Yeah, he can at least be at that average to above average, at least just serviceable enough to at least play him out in the field.
Yeah, and they actually hit better because, we did trade Adam Hazley, which I feel like we kind of ruined him a little bit because it's just like, and he's another guy I think, I had high hopes for because I actually enjoy watching his college tape. It's just like, it unfortunately didn't work out, but I think hopefully the White Sox can find a way to figure something out with him. And I think a lot of, and I saw this too, because I know the Pirates were doing a lot of flack for putting O'Neal Cruz back into the minors. It's like
that was pretty dumb. I'll admit that was pretty foolish.
It's just like now because obviously when O'Neal Cruz we're seeing Hunter Green getting his opportunity with the Cincinnati Reds because Hunter Green, I really like this kid for a guy as a high schooler, but kid's got some nasty stuff. The fact that he's actually going to make his debut is just like, it kind of shows us like there's some teams that I think they care about the prospects, some more than others. And we were seeing it with the Pittsburgh that I don't feel like they don't care. And
farm system, at least
they do have a good farm system, but like you said, like we can agree here, that was just a foolish mistake because I like even though it was a short sample size for O'Neal Cruz, I like what I saw out of him. Guys, a 6'7" shortstop. It's got some good power. It's just like he had a pretty good spring training. What was his numbers in spring training this year
for O'Neal Cruz?
Yeah, O'Neal Cruz.
I could tell you if you want.
Shoot.
Posted slash line at 333, and 1,000. 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 5 hits, and 15 at bats. With O'Neal Cruz, I'm not really sure why, I guess, they necessarily took the route they did. If we're talking about huge prospects, I know it's unfortunate O'Neal Cruz won't be starting the season on time. They'll probably call him up coming May because, that's service manipulation, and Pittsburgh has been phenomenal with that.
Yep.
But if we're talking about, stars and making the roster, Bobby Witt Jr. With the Kansas City Royals is one guy that, I've and myself and many other baseball fans have had their eyes on these last couple weeks, and now he's going to be making his debut for the Kansas City Royals. He's been having a monstrous spring training in 30 at-bats. 12 hits, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, batting .400, an OBP of 438, and an OPS of 1,138. So those are just dominant stats for the first rounder. Obviously good to see him, be the starting shortstop for the Kansas City Royals. Who else is there? Obviously the Tigers, repping the Tigers hat. Spencer Torkelson, he'll be starting the season for the Tigers. He'll probably play first base, and they'll put Miggy as DH, which I guess would make the most sense because
absolutely.
Candelario at third.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's just like Bobby Witt. See, Bobby Witt for me, when I first saw this kid, it's I was very skeptical, but I saw the potential that this kid's ceiling is higher. I guess you could definitely make the argument his ceiling is so much higher than some of these other prospects. Because I do think as Bobby Witt Jr., just the power that this kid possesses is unbelievable. I mean, we saw a couple spring training clips where he almost hit a 500-footer in spring training. Like you could definitely tell this kid is ready for the big leagues. Now, granted, is he going to struggle? Yeah, I think most rookies would struggle. I mean, we saw with Casey Mize when he struggled a little bit coming up, making his debut. I mean, I think a lot of rookies will struggle, but I don't think Bobby Witt's going to struggle that much. But I do think there's going to be somewhat of a skid before like he starts, really popping off for the Royals. I think, and like Hunter Green's another guy or another kid that I think he might have some of his regular season struggles. Yeah, granted that Tommy John surgery kind of held him back a couple. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
For who?
Hunter Green.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to Tommy John, like if you're a pitching prospect and you've never had Tommy John, believe it or not, I'd probably say that's worrying. Literally every single pitching prospect that has been highly valued has had Tommy John. For example, the New York Mets, Jacob deGrom. I don't want to talk about him now so much, but he had Tommy John. I mean, every single pitching. I mean, Zach Wheeler for your Phillies. Yeah. Every single pitcher has Tommy John. But I mean, Hunter Green is going to be interesting for the Reds. Obviously, him, Castillo, and Miley pairing that three-header of the rotation, which isn't bad in my opinion. I think that's solid. So I'm kind of excited to see him pitch for the Reds. I'll be going to a Reds game this season on Father's Day. So who knows? Maybe fingers crossed he'll be on the bump.
Yeah, it's just like now. I mean, we did get some unfortunate news that the Mets did shut down DeGrom for about a month. But this, you really hate to see it. It's just like with DeGrom.
You
do. I think with DeGrom, and I know they'll put the bias out of the side because obviously we don't like the Mets either. But DeGrom's just one of those guys. It's like you can't hate necessarily because the talent. This for a guy who got converted from a shortstop to a pitcher, and obviously that has really and the numbers did speak for themselves. The fact that he had a stretch reaction in his shoulder, which is for me, I feel like DeGrom at times does get unlucky with his injuries. And I really hate to say that because obviously last year was nothing short of history making, but unfortunately the injuries caught up to him. Now we saw Max Scherzer day to day with a hamstring tightness. It's like that kind of ties into obviously that was the last kind of topic. But do you think? For me, I don't think. Or do you? My question is: do you think the Mets are in trouble to some extent, not fully as a whole?
I think it's kind of hard, obviously. I mean, this is the thing with DeGrom starting off. It's beyond exasperating that this has become the situation for him. I mean, like you said, I think everyone could agree, 10 out of 10 people, that he is the best pitcher in baseball. He is arguably on pace for a Hall of Fame career. 2020 is really when his injury since started. No one really paid much attention because 2020 was a terrible year for baseball. Everyone was getting hurt. Last year, he started the first half with Hall of Fame beyond Bob Gibson, Tom Seaver numbers. I mean, if you want to be basic and talk about his ERA being 0.9 or, FIP, Sierra being elite, that's a thing. And then, the Mets shut him down last year, and then this is what's the norm for DeGrom. Listen, he'll recover for a month. He won't be throwing for a month. Fingers crossed he could be ready coming like May 10th, just given a random date, and he can go on the bump. Scherzer, I'm not as concerned. It's a hamstring thing. I don't really think he's going to be using his leg as much. If it was an arm, elbow, I'd be concerned, but it's his leg. So, at least he could still pitch kind of. He's day-to-day, so he'll be evaluated Tuesday, and that'll make the decision if he's ready for opening day. I'm not really concerned for the Mets, obviously. Billy Epler, the GM, made a lot of moves this offseason, pitching-wise. Obviously, they brought in Chris Bassett, which is huge. Listen, I would like him to be that number 3 starter, but if you have to move him up to 2, it's not the worst case in the world. But, having a rotation of itself with DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, Walker, Carrasco, and then going into that 6-7 spot of McGill, Peterson, diving down to your AAA, Yamamoto, Williams, that's pretty solid. The Mets have a lot of pitching depth, So I'm really not that concerned. Obviously, yes, you'd like to have DeGrom, but I don't think it's like, oh, the end of the world.
Yeah, it's it's a weird thing that for me. I feel like it's still weird. I thought Yamamoto was out of the league because it's just like with Yamamoto, because the last time I saw Yamamoto at times was in the Marlins uniform, but as soon as he left the Marlins, it's just like he just disappeared. And the fact that Billy Epler, and I'll say this too, the fact that I know Billy Epler, and I know a lot of baseball fans kind of criticize him, especially during his time with the Angels, but the fact he brought in a lot of pitching depth I say that's kind of like a first for him. Finally actually, saying what you guys really needed. In terms of the Mets, it's not. I mean, like you said, yeah, it's not a bit of a concern, but at least it should at least keep you on your toes. Because obviously we all, and at times the Mets have at times got unlucky with the injury bug. I mean, we saw it with DeGrom. Who's another one that was a big loss in it? I mean, definitely. I mean, Syndergaard, we don't know that he was hurt. He was. I think.
Syndergaard, I don't really care so much about losing. I mean, you were only going to get so much out of him. In my opinion, it was kind of foolish he left. He should have just stayed with the Mets. But I mean, Stroman. Honestly, I'm glad Stroman's gone. Honestly, right. I have a personal with Stroman. He blocked me on Twitter. He blocks every Met fan on Twitter. So Cubs fans, if there's any Cubs fans out there, you're going to be blocked by him in probably 5 days worth.
Let's go.
Stroman is so sensitive. Honestly, chemistry was horrible for this team. I can care less about Stroman leaving. But, I mean, Loop was kind of a dent, I feel, but otherwise, I'm not really concerned about the Mets pitching staff. They're dominant as it is. You lose to DeGrom, okay, yeah, maybe 10 games could be a little bit of question, but it's not like, oh, playoffs are done, goodbye. Doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
No.
It's one of those things, definitely, where losing to DeGrom definitely will hurt. The only question left is going to be, how long will we expect Max Scherzer to be gone as well? Like you said, it's day-to-day right now. It's all going to come down to the evaluation of his hamstring. And with the way his windup works, his hamstring won't be as detrimental as it is to some other pitchers because they use their leg motions a lot more, along with a lot more of the power coming from the back foot. With his throwing mechanics, it's more upper body. So, again, as long as it's nothing too major, he should be fine. But if he's going to be missing, a couple weeks, that might be a little scary there, not having, your two ace pitchers, especially your starters, to see, first 2, maybe 3 weeks of action in the opening of the season. That can put your team a little bit far behind. It's hard to catch up with depending on how the schedule is for the rest of your division.
Yeah, it's just and that's the thing, too, losing to DeGrom, yeah, and we saw in the numbers kind of just showed, especially the record-wise, it's with DeGrom, it's more than above 500 record, but as soon as DeGrom goes down, I think the Mets fall to at least almost somewhat to be of 500, just slightly above 500. But their pitching staff, from what I've always remembered, without DeGrom, has always been competitive, but they always just get knocked around depending on where you are in the rotation. Taiwan Walker, I thought he's very super underappreciated. Granted, he has dealt with injuries in his career. Was he 28, 29, give or take, going into this year? Maybe was he entering? That's just crazy. It's just crazy. See that some of these guys are still in their 20s nowadays. Taiwan Walker. I think a lot of people would have thought, is he still going to stay? And I think Hayden brought up a good point. The last episode, they really limited. He put most of that team on his back on the rotation. Was it 100 innings pitch? I give or take. Was it last year?
Yeah, I mean, last year, the big thing with the Mets collapse was it pretty much started with DeGrom going down, and it was a domino. He was the domino, and he collapsed, and it collapsed because you had DeGrom go down, and then that gave more innings to Walker. Walker was coming back from an injury. He only pitched 30 innings in the past 3 years with Toronto and Seattle. So then he had to get used to that. Then they had to call up some of their, prospects. Tyler McGill had a phenomenal rookie campaign. But keep in mind, he's a rookie. How many innings can he go? He got pushed around. They tried doing it with David Peterson. Prospect also. He got pushed around. You had Stroman. I'll say Stroman actually was phenomenal last year. I mean, really carrying the team. I give Stroman props for that. But But then, yeah, I mean, same thing with Carrasco. He could only pitch so many innings because coming back from injury. So it really affected this team. But luckily, I mean, now I get it. You're going to have a shortened spring training, which I wasn't thrilled about because I think guys like Carrasco and Walker could really benefit from a month-long spring training like usual. So, there is some concern with the rotation ahead, but I'm not like, oh my God, it's, DEFCON 1.
No, you're not pressing the big red panic button. But yeah, it's something that at least to keep an eye on. And that can apply to any team. It's like, take it from us. It's like I'll say this too. Like for us, like when Hoskins went down towards the end of the year, that's when because it's like he was like well, I'm not saying he's like the DeGrom ways, but that in the domino effect, where as soon as Hoskins went down with that core injury, that's when we all kind of just fell apart from there. I think this Tyler, and the other Tyler we can attest to that as Phillies fans because
if you look at Harper last year, when Hoskins went down, the lineup went quiet except for Harper. Harper was trying to carry this damn team on his back.
And for the most part, he did.
And for the most part, he did. He won MVP.
Yeah.
I mean,
MVP.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, you have Harper carrying this team on his back. You can't do it alone in baseball. You got to have a solid lineup. You have to have players around you that can contribute to score runs and to win.
Not Roman Quinn.
Well,
Roman. Yeah, don't mention that name ever again. Him and Nary.
Well, he's with the Marlins. He's with the Marlins organization now.
Rob.
The Marlins can enjoy him.
But oh god.
Yep.
But yeah,
enjoy him trying to bunt to get on and then
try to be the next one.
Like 100.
He's worse Tim LaCastro.
Oh my god.
Damn. And that's the thing too. Now we're seeing, this year, finally Harper has some help. Everybody's fully healthy. I'm with Hayden. Like, I don't like the shortened spring training because that isn't a concern for sometimes for some injuries waiting to happen. Yeah. But fingers crossed for any team that has to deal with this shit. But it's just like, finally landing Schwarber, landing Castellanos, at least get some bigger bats behind Harper and Hoskins. Because most of the time it was Harper and Hoskins for most of the year before that core injury affected Hoskins. Both were on base machines. It's like, it's just like now we come to realize it's like, finally our owner finally wanted to spend, finally go over the damn luxury tax, which I think it surprised a lot of Phillies fans didn't throw any parties because it's like, God damn, it took you this long to realize that.
I think Phillies fans didn't throw any parties about Castellanos was because they were expecting him to go over the luxury tax with a reliever or a closer. They weren't expecting a position player to get to be the guy that sends him over to luxury tax. They wanted a high-end reliever, a high-end closer, and they should have gotten more from that than they should.
And I 100% agree with you there. It's definitely one of those things where, don't get me wrong, I'm glad we got Castellanos. He's one of my favorite memes of all time, and I'm so happy he's a Philly. But it's also one of the things where, yes, we have all these bats, and we can probably get like a good couple of scores. But what's the point when the bullpen always will let the other team back into it?
Yeah,
because our bullpen is going to have similar, if not the exact same kind of struggles as last season, where they just can't put the game away. Like, the starting pitchers can only do so much. Like, you can't have all of your starting pitchers do complete games.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But I do think, I don't feel like we're done just yet. I mean, I think a lot of times, almost 199 times out of 10, we're going to find a way to flip some players at the trade deadline and hopefully try to bring us something, hopefully some helpful pieces. And it's not just us. It could be like the Mets, the Tigers, the Marlins, whoever it might be.
Because two things I wanted to bring up, if that was all right. I mean, one, going back to when you guys were talking about, Harper and I guess whoever the other guy would be, carrying that Phillies team. Last year, that was one thing for the Mets too. Obviously, Francisco Lindor did not have a good year. Jeff McNeil had a slump. Michael Conforto was hurt and then slumped. The only two guys on that New York Mets team that was consistent was Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso. Nimmo would walk, get a base hit, some light contact, and Alonso would hit a moonshot, double down the line, a home run, drive him in. And now the Mets added on to that. And I mean, you're hoping, the Mets, now obviously you still have Alonso and Nimmo. You're going to pray and have fingers crossed that McNeil and Lindor will have a bounce back. But then you also added guys to that. You added Marte. You added Canna. You added Escobar.
I'm still upset that you guys got Marte as well. I really wanted Marte.
Yeah. And then, I mean, going to the I guess the other part that I was going to say, part two, with the Phillies, I know you guys were saying, yes, it doesn't address, your issues of concern, and I agree with that. I think the biggest thing for the Phillies of this offseason, it wasn't bats, because they had it to an extent. Yeah, I think they could have added Castellanos and maybe one solid, all-star caliber bat, and they got two, and I think that's fair. In my opinion, I would have not signed Schwarber. Why? Well, let me tell you this. Bohm, Schwarber, and Castellanos, they're horrible defensively. I could tell you their metrics, DRS, OAA, UZR, they're horrible defensively. So now you're going to have two of those guys in the outfield with Harper, who, I mean, I guess isn't also the best of his glove, but has a good arm. I'll give him that. And then you'll have Bohm at third, or you'll put one of those three guys at DH. So it's like, okay, that's an interesting move. But then they didn't address the bullpen. I mean, Drew Familia, I'll tell you as a Mets fan, he's the most streaky guy ever. He'll give you 3 innings of solid baseball, but then he'll come in, he can't find the zone. He's throwing, towards the batter's eye or whatever. He's a little bit of a struggle. I think Knievel was a fair signing. I mean, I don't think crazy much of that, but I guess it's a guy that could pitch. But they did not address their bullpen. The defense. That is my ultimate concern for the Philadelphia Phillies.
My only kind of argument to that is you don't need defense if you only hit dingers.
That's a good point.
The issue. Statistically, the Phillies are the worst defensive team, posting a negative 22 outs above average. That's horrible. So that's why I said if they could have went out and got a Pilar, I was all on them going for Story. Get Didi out of there. Or put him on the bench or DH him or something and get Story. Get a guy with Pilar. I mean, Conforto was on the market. You could have got him, and he's phenomenal. I mean, it would have been a question with do you put Conforto in center or do you move Harper? But they should have got some guy that was a glove, whether that was a Jose Iglesias. Give me a guy with a bad bat and a good glove, because the Phillies, I mean, Castellanos, I don't know.
That's what I had Mathis for.
Who?
Mathis, the catcher. The one who can never get a hit, but will always be one of the best catchers in the league.
And don't get me wrong, I think Realmuto's a great defensive catcher. I mean, great framing metrics, but I mean, how much defensive stuff can a catcher do? I mean, so I don't know.
That is true, because it's like, looking at it too, because and look, I was really hoping to get Story, and then again, looking at it, because we have obviously our top shortstop prospect, Bryson Stott, right, and how his stock is rising. And just a lot of some of these veterans, like Harper has been praising on him. Hoskins has said some good things. It kind of gets, and obviously with Bohm, like there has been some, calling the question, like, do you think that there's going to be a third base competition between Bohm and Bryson Stott? And bringing back Didi, I did not like it to some extent, because I think, it's just like, I thought we could have done better. I think Didi, as a player overall, is just, I think, a below average player. Like, he was just never that all-star caliber shortstop a lot of people would think. Something like a Trevor Story. Who was another one that comes to mind? God damn. Fuck it. He's okay defensively, but he's like a below average player. And like Key, like, she's another Phillies fan that wanted a Story. Yeah, I think most Phillies fans would have did, but
yeah,
I had
it. But yeah, it's just like, and then it kind of got us, most of us thinking, like, what are we going to do with Stott? Because I know Stott was going to be up on his way up anyways. Because I think this year was supposed to be his ETA call up year, but he has been turned up in the spring trade, but we're going to have to wait and see how that turns out, because I want to see this kid, play in the major leagues, because, granted, the Arizona Fall League really doesn't say much about but we don't. I can definitely say, I think he's going to, even though he's not like the number one overall pick, but he's playing to the where I forgot, where did he fall in the first round? Oh crap,
I totally forgot.
I forgot because it's just like he doesn't have that much pressure on his shoulders. Not as high as Mickey.
He was the 14th pick.
14th pick.
Yep.
I think and that's the thing too. Like picks like that really don't have that much pressure. It's like, I'm like lower first round. Like we're seeing it. What Stott is capable of. Obviously, another good lefty bat. Devy's got some good pop in that bat too.
Mm-hmm.
Good good defensively. I would not be surprised. Yeah, and Keith said if he's going to play third, that's going to be very interesting. Where I think, and I was reading something too. It's just like with Stott being in the midst of playing third, because I kind of feel like that was going to force him back to the minors, because it's like it's just like Stott's just, I don't know. There's something about Stott that just, he's not like super flashy, but the talent kind of speaks for itself. Right. It's just like you have players like those, like it's like, yeah, they may not be super flashy, but they know how to make it up with their talent. I think another one I'm really looking forward to in the next handful of years, and that's Mick Abel. And I like what I saw out of Mick Abel. But the issue is at times just know how good is his command. But I do think that's going to going to be polished over time as he goes through the minors. And like I said too, with the Andrew Painter pick, I was not too high on it because I kind of want to get these college kids because they're more in the way developed and have a better chance. Because usually high school players seem to Mick Abel, Andrew Painter, they got a lot of time to develop.
I wish you guys kept Spencer Howard. I think he would have been good.
I was high on him, but the issue that I had with him was just like he just could not. I don't know what it is.
We were high on him from the jump when we drafted him, but the problem is I think he had issues with shoulder or something, or velocity, or whatever.
The velocity
was not pitching well.
Velocity there is he just didn't have the greatest command of the ball after the first couple of pitches.
No, and the thing is, he would not get out of third inning. He would never get out of third inning.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, his velocity. I think after a certain amount of pitches, his velocity dips. Because he'll be between 95 and 97. After 20 pitches in, he'll be down to 92 to 93. It's just which for me it's where is this coming from? Because granted, he has dealt with some shoulder injuries. I mean, we saw that I think a couple of times. Because obviously we did have to put him on the IL. I think for a couple of times, but I just feel like it was. I don't feel like it just. I don't know. I don't know. But Spencer Howard's a conundrum.
And the thing is, with Spencer Howard, I was so high on the kid, and then when every time he was on the bump, he would not get out of the third inning, and it was so infuriating. So infuriating.
It's just.
I mean, at that point, I just consider just putting him back into the bullpen, see if he maybe does better as a reliever, because he definitely wouldn't be able to be a starter with that kind of loss of velocity and command.
Not at all. Not at all.
Do is develop them in the bullpen. I mean, the Brewers did it with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. They developed them in the bullpen. They got their innings up, and when they felt they were mature, when they had their innings, when they were able to really go out there and be lethal, then they put them in the rotation. And I think that's what honestly any ball club should do, regardless Mets, Phillies. It's what any ball club should do. I mean, I don't know if you got familiar with Tyler McGill. He debuted for the Mets last year. Wasn't a crazy prospect, but was insane last year. I mean,
he's for me, he was just your prospect says it really doesn't mean anything, but and that's a good point because it's I like to see what teams can follow with the Brewers did because I mean we saw with Corbin Burns, winning the Cy Young, coming out, starting as a bullpen guy, which I think, nowadays it's just that utility pitcher. And I'll say this, one name that comes to mind when it comes to utility pitchers, and that's Chris Capuano back in the early mid 2010s.
Yeah, and let me add to this, Rob. We're also key to this too because look what happened to Ranger Suarez. How he started.
That's another good. Yeah, look.
He started off as a bullpen guy, and then the last year he was a starter and was amazing. Last year.
That's true. It's just It's just like, and nowadays, like obviously we're in the new age where like people are throwing almost like 100 plus, but something like Ranger, there are times where in certain games like he has hit 95 miles an hour on the fastball, but he doesn't look like he does not rely on velocity, but it's more like he has that Maddox mindset just to know how to control games. Yeah, he might throw 92 to 94, but he can still beat you with it. I mean, we saw it. I think the day after, after Wheeler had that, that Doc Holliday kind of esque kind of day. Which, let's be real, it's just like, I know Hayden. I know you didn't like Wheeler going away because it's like it seemed like that when Wheeler signed with us, it kind of pissed off some Mets fans. I don't know if that kind of get your feelings on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think any player going to a division rival obviously is unfortunate. Obviously Mets had different ownership back then. I think it's pretty obvious if Cohen was the owner, I guarantee he'd still be wearing a Met uniform. It's just the Will Ponds and former GM Brody Van Wagenen was the biggest doofus on earth to ever exist.
The beloved Will Ponds.
Yeah, thank God. No, I mean, like I said, back to the whole prospect thing, I think it's really interesting that now we get so much close access to all these, prospects. We have this MLB pipeline. Hopefully I want them to start televising a lot of minor league games. I think that'd be really cool. I mean, I know the Phillies are like, 26th or 27th on the farm. I mean, the aren't that good. Like 14, so like they're nothing great, but they have 4 or 5 guys that are really something. I think the Mets have 4 guys in the top 100, but
I know Paint or McAble, I think he was, last time I checked MLB Pipeline, he was ranked 89th at MLB Pipeline. Bryson Stott was like a handful of spots ahead of him. So at least we have a couple guys in the top 100, but it's just like, that really does say just how bad our farm system is. But granted, we did, before the end of the year, we did start making changes to our front office, which, let's be real, that's something which was way overdue. Now, I think, it's just like and like I said, Tim, there's a couple college prospects I'm keeping my eye on. And one of them, and I did make a video about this too, about Ben Joyce out of University of Tennessee. What I liked about him, obviously, we all know that because obviously a lot of people not kind of talking about it because, I mean, I know most major leaguers are kind of talking about it on social media, especially Andrew McCutchen, where Ben Joyce topped out at 103 at the college level. And I was like, that's going to be. Oh yeah, and I forgot about Andrew Jones though. His son's going to be a stud when going to Vanderbilt.
You guys
honestly, we're seeing a lot more of these former MLB players' sons coming into the league and just making some noise.
Oh yeah, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio.
Don't forget about Vladdy.
That's what I said. I said Vlad Guerrero Jr. He was the first one.
Did you not say Fernando then? I thought you didn't say one of those two.
I said Guerrero Jr.
Oh, yeah, Todd. Right.
Oh shit! Forgot about Todd. God damn! Forgot about Todd.
His dad wasn't anything.
I forget. Oh my god!
His dad was.
Yeah, I think the only guy in MLB history to hit 2 grand slams.
Grand slams to the same inning.
Jesus, like that's putting up some video game numbers right there. It's just like it's crazy to see these. Like your Bichette. A lot of older fans. Dante Bichette. Most of us would remember. Craig Biggio, probably the most scrappy player on that Houston Astros team before they were. It's just crazy. It's like, and I still remember times too. Craig Biggio against. I think he was kind of a thorn on our sides a little bit too, along with Freddie Freeman a little bit because it's like he was just a hard player to get out, and I can understand why. I mean, obviously, granted, it's just like never because. And it's just crazy. It kind of what annoys me as a baseball fan to see these guys who are the sons of the former major leaguers getting called overrated. I don't know if everybody saw that clip of Drew Jones.
And he hit a home run.
Yeah, it's just like I kind of don't like that. But and I kind of does, and I get it. It does come with the territory because that's a big name putting on your shoulders. Like Vlad Guerrero Jr. I mean, we all know that he grew up alongside his dad. And granted, his dad was probably the most unorthodox of players. We see, because I don't know much about Dante Biggio, or I'm sorry, Bichette, because he was kind of, I think before early 90s, give or take. Yeah, so that's something I would not, because Guerrero, I remember would somewhat expect when the Montreal Expos was still kind of a thing, or but still in team back, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It just like seeing with like these guys, like Vlacker, I thought he had a good year. I think Bichette had an okay. It's just like Bichette and Biggio had somewhat. I think had some of a down year, but I think for me, when it comes to the AL East, I think Toronto's going to be that sneaky team. A lot of people are going to be. I think are going to be sleeping on, because I think that team is stacked from top to bottom. Where you look at the rotation.
Honestly, the AL East in its entirety is probably going to be one of the most intense divisions in the entirety of the league. I mean, you got
not even Baltimore,
the Jays, the Yankees. Like all four of those could honestly
can win the division.
Yeah. Like, honestly, out of those four, I do feel like the Yankees are a little bit more on the outside looking in, just with some of the moves the other teams have made, but still, the only one who has no chance is the Orioles.
and if you looked at they have like a $30 million payroll. It's like, what the hell? It's just like, looking back at 2013, 2014, where that team was at, where the Baltimore's were actually good, but for some odd reason, after that, they just completely shit the bed.
Well, hey. Think about the positives.
That is true.
A beautiful ballpark.
That's true. Camden Yards is a beautiful ballpark, and obviously had the warehouse where the great Ken Griffey Jr. with a sweet, it's just like, it's crazy seeing these former players that play, unfortunately play with that team. Adam Jones, Delman Young. It's crazy the fact that I still remember his fucking name is beyond my imagination. Chris Carter, not Chris Carter, but what's his name?
Chris Young or something?
No, Chris Davis.
Chris Davis.
I couldn't think of his goddamn last name, because there's two of them. Mr. Kai, the most overplayed player for the Baltimore Orioles. It's just like, I don't know.
Man can't hit. I'm just.
The fact that he set an MLB record for on a hitless streak is.
He was 0-20. He was 0-26.
0 for 56 was the record. Yikes!
Yeah, he was bad.
It's just like, I mean, Boulder Jimenez was okay when it's during his time in Baltimore, but it was not like when he was in his prime of Colorado. It's just like you're seeing some of these guys. Adam Jones, I thought he was a solid player for them. From last time I checked, he's already playing with the Oryx Buffaloes in Japan. I think he's doing well over there. I mean, granted, it's not that competitive, because obviously it's been compared to AAA in a certain sense. They're for the style of play.
While actually we're on the topic of Japan, I do want to hear you guys' voice on this from the brand new rule that the MLB is implementing now that there's universal DH. The Ohtani rule, as it's being called, where if you have a player who is your pitcher but is also your DH, after they are subbed out as the pitcher, they are still allowed to DH. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Actually, I'm all for that. Actually,
I'm for it too. I kind of think it's an interesting rule.
It's really not that bad of a rule, because it's still only rule you're doing is just taking away the pitch, and that's pretty much about it. That's the thing.
Let me say this first. I am all for it before I get into what I'm about to say. But for me, it's kind of weird, because if you're taking out the player from the field, that should count as a substitution in my eyes. And that I feel like that should carry over towards, the batting order as well. That could just be me. It's just how it makes sense to me. But like I said, I'm still all for it, because, when you have a guy like Ohtani and you want to try and, encourage more teams to try and find more players that can do that kind of stuff, you want to make sure they're given every opportunity to succeed and, go out there and make their names for themselves. It's just a little weird for me, though.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just like, granted, I mean, if you think of when most of us play ball, once you get substitutes, I mean, it's just like someone like Ohtani, when Ohtani broke into the league, it's like, we were not expecting to see a two-way play, because, like we said, as MLB history has shown, last time someone ever did that was Babe Ruth back in the 1900s. So I mean, how Ohtani, I mean, we all know that Ohtani has done it majority of his throughout his career in Japan, but actually has found success here in the major leagues as a two-way player. Is for me, I don't think it's not groundbreaking, but at least it's kind of like there's some players that are still out there. Like that's just like
it's a rare breed.
Same with the I think another guy that's kind of been forgotten. Pat Vendetti. He's another guy that I feel like has been forgotten because obviously there is the Vendetti rule at the same time for ambidextrous pitchers, which
yes, let us not forget the good old long duration of you're going righty, I'm going lefty. Well, if you're going lefty, I'm going righty.
Oh my God! Was that during the? I think it was like Pirates and Blue Jays spring training game where it's just going to constantly just flipping back.
Yeah, where neither one wanted to give up.
That was just too funny. But yeah, see, for me, I'm all for the Ohtani rule. It's just like it's not really nothing too crazy, but yeah, I think that should count as a substitute. And I'm kind of agree with Tyler here. I do agree that it should be counted as a substitution in a certain sense because obviously you're still going to be sticking in the lineup as a DH. But you're not going to be in that pitcher's role.
Right.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, like I said, it doesn't really it's nothing really crazy. I mean, it makes sense. You want to have a DH, and you're not going to want to go back to the original roots of when you had a pitcher in, then you had to keep substituting a hitter. So, I mean, like I said, first, I'm all for the DH. I'm assuming you guys are too.
Oh yeah, it just makes baseball more competitive and funner to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, why waste? Why have 3 DHs in a game? Just keep the same DH because
so we can have more Bartolo Colon moments.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I think having multiple DHs in a game would be kind of foolish and what it was before. So I'm all for the Ohtani rule.
And not just that too, because and I said this too when I'm all for the DH because after going back to DeGrom after he dealt with that shoulder problems after swinging the bat. Yeah, granted he was a shortstop in college. That was a bit of a concern for me. It's just how much longer. It's just I'd rather have him see him pitch and just actually have that kind of stay healthy rather than and let somebody else kind of take over that job.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Wainwright, Zach Gallen, a lot of guys have almost had their careers kind of screwed up just because of the bat. And I mean, their job is to pitch and let them do their job and let the hitters hit. I mean, that's my biggest thing.
Absolutely
exactly.
Right. But to wrap it up for the final topic from Key, from what she sent me, say who's going to have a better season, Corey Seager or Francisco Lindor?
Ooh,
wow!
That's a loaded. That is a loaded question.
You know what?
That is a loaded question.
Want to start? I'm going to go with Francisco Lindor.
I'm going to say Lindor because I think Lindor is going to bounce back because, look, he might not be the greatest with the bat, but he has his moments. I mean, look back during his time in Cleveland, he has his moments with the bat. But we all know that Lindor is probably one of the greatest defensive shortstops in this generation of players today. But
the only problem that I saw with Lindor last year was plate discipline. That was pretty much the only thing that I've seen that was really an issue with that guy last year. He's obviously worked on it, so hopefully he bounces back. I know he's gonna most likely have a bounce back here because of the numbers in spring training. Yeah, Corey Seager's gonna do Corey Seager's stuff.
Yeah, it's
so.
I think in a way they're both going to have a good bounce back year. It's just that I feel with Lindor, like it was already saying, Lindor's biggest problem was his discipline at the plate. He wasn't very disciplined at that aspect.
Yeah.
And I do think that's going to change drastically this upcoming season.
Yep.
So I could definitely see him just bouncing back, having an absolutely fantastic year. And they're both going to do great. They're definitely in some of the best teams in their divisions. It's just I can definitely see Lindor maybe having a little bit more of an impact than Seager is.
Yeah, I see that too. Because of that fact.
It was good last year.
Yeah.
Corey doesn't need to have a back. He was phenomenal last year. He batted 306.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Kyle,
that's what I'm saying. Corey Seager is doing.
Yeah, he was phenomenal last year. 145 OPS plus, 915 OPS.
Yeah, That's exactly why I was saying Corey Seager is going to do Corey Seager things because he wasn't that bad last year. And the only problem that I had was Lindor. Because Lindor didn't have the
I think Lindor is in desperate need of a bounce back because I mean, he's still a top 5, top 10 player in the major leagues.
Yeah, he didn't really. He had one bad year last year.
And I don't know if I'd say Lindor's top 5 in the league. I do think he could be within like top 10, top 15, but I don't think Lindor's top 5.
Yeah,
I don't see any good players say he's top 5.
I'll say he's a top 20. This is my thing with Lindor. Last year in the second half, he really did show signs. Defensively, no issue. I mean, the 100th percentile in OAA. No issue defensively. He's a top-tier defensive shortstop. But you don't pay $341 for a guy with a bad bat and a good glove. I mean, offensively, he wasn't bad. He was making contact. It's not like he was sitting there, striking out or taking strike 3 down the middle. He was hitting.
He wasn't making those. He wasn't waiting for the good pitch to try and get that swing on, though. That's the big issue.
Right.
Yeah,
and a lot of the time last year, we would see he would hit the ball to the right side of the infield, a ground ball to the right side of the infield, and it drove me nuts. Nothing to do with the shift, by the way. It drove me nuts how he would do that. And this season, I mean, he's really been starting to hit the ball hard. We've been seeing the launch angle has been improving for him. He's been hitting the ball with a better launch. The exit velocity, the yard hit rate, he's hitting the ball much harder now. So I think that's really going to help out Lindor this season. I do think Lindor will have a bounce back. Like, people are saying, 2018 was his best year. That was when he finished MVP caliber. I don't think we're ever going to see that. I don't think he's ever going to be worth 341, but I definitely think he could be that 250 margin of, 25 to 30 homers, 75 RBIs, give you an average 275, an OPS of 860, 870. I think
like 10 or 15 stolen bags at the most.
Something like that, yeah. I don't think he's going to be 40 home runs, bat 312. No. I don't see that. Yeah. But I think he's a fair hitter. I think he is prone for a bounce back. Like I said, he had a good spring training. I mean, take it with how much you could. He had a good spring training last year. But he has shown better signs with spring training. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this season is going to be very interesting to where teams are going to sit, because obviously now some teams making additions. We saw what the Padres done. I mean, most of us Phillies fans, we can take it for granted that we're part of their collapse, but that's a little bit funny to some extent. But I do think the Padres made some slight improvements, especially in the pitching department, because they have a lot of money invested in some of their players like Will Myers, Eric. I think they're still shopping Eric Hosmer from the last time I checked.
Yeah, I'm honestly really surprised that they didn't get rid of him last year. I think it's honestly because they kept Hosmer last season is what really helped with the downfall of that collapse. It's just Hosmer was just kind of there. He wasn't really doing too much else besides it. It's
just like Hosmer has not been him. I just don't feel like Hosmer was the same player that he once was back in 2015, 26. During his time with the Royals. That kind of thing. I think Will Myers is still still a decent bat to have in the lineup. I think he's still decent defensively. But is he great by any stretch of means? Probably not. But I mean, he has shown he has decent production. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the baseball world, even myself included, I can hold my hand up. I did troll the Padres for, picking up Jake Arrieta, Vince Velasquez, which that was kind of funny, but now White Sox are going to have to deal with Velasquez.
Or White Sox. It's a good thing they're in the easiest division in baseball.
Yeah, I think that might be the. I think either the NL or the AL Central might be the weakest. I think the AL Central is probably the weakest division out of the many, because I feel like I said,
it's just like the only team that's really in contention to do anything at all competitive right now is the White Sox. And I guess you can make the argument for the Guardians. I gotta remember it's not the other name anymore. Was like those are pretty much the only two teams that are doing anything, and even then, White Sox should honestly be coming out first in that division just by proxy, just because they have the better overall team set up than the Guardians right now.
I mean, I mean, there's a couple sleeper teams going in that division, and one of them is going to be the Tigers because they got some good. And I think obviously with Torkelson coming up playing first, having Miggy, Baddill still very underappreciated. I mean, now having Javi Baez, I think was it Willie Castro their shortstop before they bring in Javi Baez.
Oh God, I have no idea.
They kind of platooned a lot of guys, but yeah, for the most part.
But I do think the Tigers are definitely going to make some noise in the AL Central. That I know for a fact. It's like I think at best where I see the Tigers, I think they could be like at least a third place finish as a team overall. But I think going down the road, I do think they're one of the. I think also you can definitely make the argument the Royals might also can pose a threat going down the road against the White Sox to some extent.
Make an argument for the Twins. I mean, the Twins are like, yeah, they signed Correa. That's pretty good. I mean, Byron Buxton, if he's healthy, he'll have an MVP caliber year. But like, they really have no pitch. I mean, the pitching
is just not there.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons I say the Guardians are like the only other really competitive team there because they got like Shane Bieber and they got
Zach Plesac.
What's the closer's name?
Shit.
Clase?
Yeah, Clase. It's like because they have at least some good pitching, so that's why I think they could maybe like put up a little bit of fight against the White Sox. But the White Sox just have the overall just better.
They just got better. They're better built. They're just built better.
Better pitching staff. It's just. Meanwhile, the Guardians have some okay hitters and then like some couple of really good pitchers.
I say Twins or White Sox or Tigers, in my opinion. I think the White Sox will obviously win that division. I think the Tigers are kind of underrated this season. I mean, keep in mind they did finish in the second half with the second half record of 500. I think a little bit above actually. So they're a solid team. They have a young pitching staff that looks promising. They signed Eduardo Rodriguez this offseason from Boston. They brought in Baez. I mean, I think he's a solid player. He was good with the Mets in the second half. You'll have Torkelson. Hopefully they call up Green. You have some other good bats, Candelario, Miguel Cabrera, if he could still keep productive. So, I mean, they Tucker Barber
benefit highly from this new universal DH rule.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to do it. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be very interesting for, the Phillies, the Tigers, definitely, any other teams. But before we kind of wrap up, it's just like kind of one final thought. It's just like, yeah, and I kind of go over Tyler's point too, like with the White Sox, yeah, they've been built better, but I think if you look overall their timeline, they have made some questionable trades over the years. And obviously we all know one of them, that is the Fernando Tatis Jr. trade. And I know White Sox fans are probably never going to let that down. It's just like, Gene, like, it's just, when I looked at trade on paper, it's like, I was like, are you kidding me? Because Tatis, I kind of kept a close eye on because I know the kind of, even though, yeah, he is obviously, Tatis Jr. But what we saw out of what Tatis was going to be when he went to the Padres, it showed like, what could have been different. But unfortunately, they made that horrific trade. But now it looks and looking at this really not affect. I mean, it has affected a little bit over since then. But I think over time, I think they've gotten better of building around that team. But yeah, I mean, yeah, but I do appreciate, Green Collar Tyler, my buddy Tyler coming on. Hayden, pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
But for those who are new to the show, I know this is the panel that you're not accustomed to seeing because obviously, Key in the building is not so Key and Dante were not available. So, so I got my three buddies here. Go check out Green Collar Tyler, and I have Hayden's channel linked down below in the description. And then go check out Tyler as well on the It's Drill Me channel if you guys are huge wrestling fans too at the same time. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys coming on, talking some baseball for about the last over hour and 25 minutes. But yeah, finally it's good to have baseball back. Yeah, almost feels like it's been a fucking.
It feels good, man. It feels great.
And the words
it was such a slow crawl. Waiting for it to come back.
But we got there in the end. That's all that matters.
Like this words in the air. But with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next episode.